Um, Visual communication is really the most efficient way to bring people closer together. By building products that help you share your experiences visually, Instagram breaks barriers of distance and time and can make the world feel like a smaller and more welcoming place. And for publishers and journalists, that means that Instagram can be a really powerful place to meet your next audience where they live. Instagram's a very rich source of first person storytelling. We've seen it become the home of these visual moments that really turn into news trends. For journalists and publishers, this source of high quality first person visual content can really help inform your reporting and storytelling. And when we look at Instagram, we really think of it as a new sort of visual language altogether. Uh, as the world is shifting to more visual communication, Instagram is helping publishers make that transition to a more visual and, more importantly, more mobile type of storytelling. For example, many news organizations moved really quickly to join Instagram stories and are experimenting with the platform there. And we've seen some publishers, we'll see later in this webinar, that have really developed some innovative ways of storytelling. So what does news actually look like on Instagram? It's important to remember the environment on Instagram when you're thinking about what to publish there. It's personal and it's positive, and if we're honest, that's not necessarily always the starting point in some newsrooms. But success on Instagram hinges on being able to translate what you do best. So, taking your reporting expertise and your deep knowledge of your local community and translating that into the highly visual, highly engaged communities that you can find organically on Instagram. First person news plays really well on Instagram. That first person orientation really offers an authentic, relatable view of news events through the eyes of people who are affected by them. I love this example by Anderson Cooper, and you can see it's not a very highly produced piece of film. Anderson doesn't seem like he spent a lot of time on that side of the camera, but he's taking his fans into the heart of CNN's election night coverage and giving them a backstage pass to a slice of history that they wouldn't be able to see anywhere else, and from his direct vantage point. News on Instagram is also very young. People under the age of 25 spend more than 32 minutes per day on Instagram. People 25 and older spend more than 24 minutes. And people who get news on Instagram are very young in general. 58% are between the ages of 18 and 29, according to a 2016 Pew study. And Instagram stories plays a big role in that. Teens watch 4 times more stories every day than their older counterparts. And so thinking of kind of stories that can connect with youth and younger audiences is a really important part of your content strategy when it comes to Instagram. It's very community driven. So while a lot of traditional news sources are really primarily one-way broadcasters, even when they're on their social platforms, news on Instagram is a more interactive, inclusive, community driven experience. Sometimes this community can extend from online into real life, like it did in this Day in the Life project from Newsday in Long Island. One day in June, Newsday fanned out its reporters and photographers across Long Island and asked them to document a day in the life of their community. They invited their audience to participate as well, and they hosted an event before the big day to plan the project together with local photography enthusiasts and their own staff reporters. And the result was a lively and fascinating day on their Instagram hashtag. And then they took the best material and turned that into a special insert in the Sunday paper. Let's look at what kinds of storytelling work best. Breaking news is no surprise. Now this uses Instagram stories to share quick bits of the latest events. They often will use videos that they've recut for the vertical format. They put minimal graphics, but graphics that add kind of key context. CNN is well known for breaking news, but they tell us that their most successful Instagram images often convey kind of the emotional response to a big headline event that's going on. And then the Manchester Evening News, they use their Instagram stories to share in-the-moment updates on breaking news. And then they use the swipe up feature so that they can link out to the full article on their site and give people more context. Profiles and interviews, because they have such potential for really strong visuals and have a mobile first feel, play really well. On this example on the left, the New York Times is walking through, Sam Sifton has gone to a pizza parlor in Brooklyn. And the Times Instagram stories are often adaptations of longer pieces on their site or in the paper. So this example, this feature on this kind of cult pizza baker, it uses really short clips but riveting visuals, um, slow-mo views of the process, and they turn that into what some of us in New York would say is the world's perfect pizza dough. In the middle here, NBC produced a series of small portraits of the people behind the scenes at the 2016 political conventions. These videos were impressionistic views of the larger characters in the story. And then the captions, you can see here, they use that space to really give more context around the people in the video. And then Bustle's Instagram stories are all mini franchises that feel a bit like shot on iPhone shows. This one is a classic interview format that they've reimagined for Instagram. They shot and edited it on a phone. Then they cut it and shared it on stories with simple graphics to break up the segments. And they've seen really strong growth and engagement with these types of this series. Enterprise reporting surprisingly plays well on Instagram. On the left, the Center for Investigative Reporting released this story on Instagram about a bad plea deal that had sent an innocent man to prison. Reveal would go on to commission illustrations to tell the story kind of comic strip style in their Instagram feed. This middle example is one of my favorites. Time Magazine followed 3 Syrian refugee families all year long in an Instagram first reporting project. And while we've all seen the images of refugees coming ashore on boats, the heart of the crisis, the images that make those headlines, what I love about Finding Home on Instagram is that it shows you all the moments of the story, what real life is actually like for the people that were living through this event in between the headlines. And for viewers that are far away from the crisis itself, Finding Home can really create empathy and understanding between the participants in a crisis and then the people who are used to reading about it at a distance. And it's a very visual take on this story that really strikes home when you encounter it on stories. And then on the right, Refinery 29 in this example is reinventing the travel narrative with a simple phone video that's overlaid with text and visual annotations to kind of add context and color to the narrative. And Danielle and I can kind of share these later with sound if we're interested in seeing it in full. Live event coverage is key. Photojournalist David Guttenfelder, who shoots a lot for Nat Geo, is excellent at this. He uses a mix of stills and videos here to convey the mood of Fidel Castro's funeral procession. He puts himself on camera at the top to narrate the scene. Guttenfelder is particularly skilled at the pacing in his Instagram stories. He does a really great job of mixing up stills and video to keep it captivating. In the middle, this photojournalist, Jings Ijar, posted in-the-moment footage from celebrations in Iraq. And he used the text overlays and Instagram stories to really add some historical context to the current event as it was going on. And I'll just let that play so you can see through a few more. And then on the right, this one is a little more lighthearted, but it was really fun use of Instagram Live. BuzzFeed's news team was in Kentucky for a Trump rally, but before the big event, they decided to go to a restaurant and try out the local specialty, which is something called the hot brown. And then formal setting really gave them a great opportunity to have a conversation with their audience about the story and also prime them for what was going to happen next when they went to the rally and kind of get some feedback about what their followers wanted to hear about when they went to that rally. In terms of building your audience, there are a few key things that you can do to maximize your chances at growing that fan base. Optimize for search and explore is the number one tip here. This part of the Instagram app was designed to help people find things that they'll like but just don't know about it yet. It's personalized for every single user, so no 2 explore pages will look quite the same. But if your goal is growing your audience, you want to make sure you're creating content for every section of this page. So search and explore features photos, videos, stories, and live videos that are feed things people might be into based on the other things that they're following or spending time with. And so you want to make sure that you're doing a little bit of each type of format so you have a chance to populate those different sections. We looked at some of the fastest growing accounts and tried to kind of distill it down to what things they had in common. So these are the fastest growing news accounts that we looked at. And it really did boil down to 3 things. So more posts. We saw people like Bleacher Report, double their posts and get increased engagement there, more video, and then a focus on engagement there. And so that was kind of digging into the hashtags that their followers were using or that were getting the most interaction on their posts, and then trying to kind of follow that trail to see what their followers were kind of organically engaging with, what other topics might be relevant for their feed. In terms of using Instagram and finding Instagrams as a news gathering process, because these can make great embeds or tell a story of their own. First one is pretty basic. Obviously, using place and hashtag search, particularly place search, that can help connect your content to the larger kind of conversation and community on Instagram that's interested in that topic. Place search is really popular. And as you can see here, there's now like Instagram stories for places, so you can also appear there. CrowdTangle, I think you guys just recently had a great webinar on CrowdTangle. But you can make lists of accounts and get alerts on high-performing Instagram posts. And then you can also look at the analytics to spot patterns in your past coverage and make smarter content plans going forward. And then this last one is Signal, which many of you may have, but if you don't, just flag your LMA or LMC rep, and Danielle and I can get you access. Signal is like a curation dashboard tool that we built specifically for journalists. And the search engine for Instagram is particularly powerful compared to the other features. You can search by location, by multiple hashtags, or inside a list of accounts. Once you get those results back, you can even filter them by media type. So you could, for example, see only Instagram videos that were tagged Parade in Dallas, Texas, from a list of accounts you trust. So this can be a really helpful way to find eyewitness footage from stories that you're already covering. We recently gave Instagram embeds a cleaner look. We redesigned them to appear better and to also have faster load time. We've cut load time in half this year. And so again, if you are looking to kind of interject some user-generated content natively into your story, we've tried to improve that process there. And then we recently, just in the last few weeks, launched a new feature that allows you to go live with another account. This is something that you could do on Facebook Live before, and we're really excited to have brought it over to Instagram. Live video really helps you share in an authentic way, but it can sometimes be intimidating when you're on your own. So it's easy to add a guest now while you're broadcasting. You just tap the new icon that's on the bottom right and tap add to invite anyone who's currently watching. So if you're planning to go live with someone, you should make sure that you have them join your broadcast ahead of time. And then once they do join, you'll see this screen split into two, and your friend will pop up right below you. You can use kind of funny filters and masks, and it's a really great way to like bring together a larger audience between, whether that's between your publisher account and a reporter or between two reporters. We highly recommend that you turn on two-factor authentication to keep your account safe. Of course, you can go through Josh Mabry or Danielle Noriega if you have trouble with your account being hacked, but really the best thing is to be proactive here and turn this on so no one can get into your account. And then we put a lot of work into improving the quality of comments recently. Especially in news, the conversations can sometimes get a little bit out of hand. And so we try to increase the options that you have to keep things civil. So you can turn on a setting now that automatically hides comments with offensive language. You can turn on keyword filters if you want to filter out a set of words that you specifically find objectionable. You can add your own list of keywords or phrases there. And then if you need to, you can turn off comments altogether on an individual post. Which we've seen publishers and journalists sometimes want to do on something that's particularly sensitive. Account insights, if you're on a business profile, most of you are probably already using this, but it'll give you more information about who's following your account, which posts are resonating the most with them. You can track impressions and reach on your videos. And we also added insights for stories, which was a kind of frequently requested feature from publishers. And so again, you just need to change your profile to business profile. Anyone can do this. It doesn't need to be your publisher page. But if you're interested in seeing what kind of engagement and reach you're getting. And then before we open it up for questions, I do want to do kind of the 5 takeaways. If you remember nothing else, these are kind of our 5 best tips. Growing with frequency, video, and precision. So paying a lot of attention to your insights and figuring out what format works best, but also experimenting so you can get in those different parts of search and explore. Experimenting with Instagram stories now that they have insights, so you can track what kind of content is working best there. Don't overproduce. This kind of goes back to you saw some of those examples from Manchester Evening News, and now this using the tools that are organic in the app makes it more appealing to users if you're using it in the same way that they would be using it. So we've seen some great graphics that have been brought in and imported in, and those can be great as well, but don't overthink it. Real and authentic is definitely better than perfect. Turn on two-factor authentication. And then lastly, we want to invite you all to join the IG Workshop for News and Publishers group. I'm in there, as well as Danielle, members of our CrowdTangle team and our Instagram partnerships team. And that's where you can stay in the loop on kind of anything that's upcoming, any other workshops and new features that are being rolled out.
Cool. Awesome, Jen. Just a note before we open it up to questions. I know I've gotten inbound on CrowdTangle Access, Signal, and Portal. We're working with our cross-functional teams and ops to expedite those requests. So just hang tight. We'll be all set in about a week or so. So if anything comes up, just make sure to flag it to me at dnoriega@fb.com. D like dog, NORIEGA@fb.com. So we're going to open it up to questions. Let's see. There is one question here. Here we go. So how do we join IG Workshop for News and Publishers group?
Yeah. So if you're interested, just flag your LMA or LMC rep. Please send them the email address that's associated with your personal Facebook account, and then we'll add you and you'll get an email that lets you click in there. Alternately, if you snap a picture of the screen real quick, if you find the group, you can just request access. And Danielle and I will check at the end of the day and add anybody that's popped up today.
Cool. Awesome. So it looks like the questions are at a minimum. Anybody else before we close up?
Yeah. So we've actually got someone on our team devoted to local news. We're actually starting to grow that team. For now, we're doing this through LMA and LMC, or also your social media editor at your publication should also probably have a contact for you. Again, if you have any questions about that or trying to do kind of self-support through the portal, go through your LMA, LMC rep who invited you to this webinar, and Danielle will, he'll pass it on to Danielle.
Any data on benefits, drawbacks on sharing IG photos directly to FB pages?
Yeah, great question. I don't have any hard data on that for you. I can check with our product team and see if they have anything there. What we generally recommend is that because it doesn't take you any extra bandwidth to share, that you go ahead and do that. Although if you have kind of a content strategy plan already for your Facebook page, sharing it there natively is good as well.
Great. So I want to switch to the business profile, but it's asking me to log in with Facebook. There is no professional account linked to our Instagram.
No professional account. Oh, what I think you mean is there's no Facebook page linked to your Instagram might be what you mean. In which case, if you're an admin on that page, then you should be able to log in and then switch your Instagram. But that's another one that sounds pretty specific. We can definitely help you offline if you want to flag. Or if you request to join the group, if you post your issue there, we can kind of troubleshoot that with you right after this.
Great. So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Oh yeah, Andrea. Yeah.
Thanks, we've been in touch. Okay.
Just head to the group when we wrap up here, and then Danielle and I can reach out to you there and try to troubleshoot that for you.
Great. Awesome. So that looks like that's our wrap up. Thanks so much for joining us. Next week we'll be setting up for Insights. So we look forward to hearing from you there, and we'll follow up today with any additional guides and post surveys. Thanks so much.